Hello, everyone. Welcome to session number one. I'm so excited to help you on this journey of recovery. And one of the things that you'll find out every single week, one of the things that we do to start off is talk a little bit about the previous week, but then every single week you're going to learn a new skill. And these skills are going to be different breathing exercises, different mindfulness type things, things that have been shown and proven to help people with anxiety. And so 15 sessions every week, you're going to learn a new skill. So in the end, you're going to have about 15 different skills to help you manage your anxiety and help you manage your depression. So these have been recorded previously. I've been using them for a couple of years as I do individual counseling. And so I'm going to introduce the very first one. And so I'll turn that video on, and then we'll catch up with session one here in just a minute. Hey, welcome to week one. I hope you're encouraged and hopeful on this journey of recovery and can't wait to hear your success story. But the first skill I want to talk about is left brain deep breathing. So it's deep breathing where you're kind of thinking about it, you want to be aware of it, making sure you're going through the proper steps. And, deep breathing, it's been shown to lower blood pressure, it lowers your heart rate, it removes lactate, which is a bad chemical that gets released into your body with anxiety and stress. It releases serotonin, which is a good chemical. It slows your amygdala response, which we'll be talking about in the program, and how that kind of interacts and affects your body. And when you're breathing from your diaphragm, it puts pressure on your vagus nerve, which kind of also creates a sense of calm. So it's going to be one of the most important things, especially next week when we get to the right brain part of it. But now just getting the thinking part down and being able to do it. What you're going to do, you either put your hands behind your head. That'll help you. You want to breathe from your belly and not from your chest. So you can either do it with your hands behind your head, or you can put a hand on your belly, hand on your chest, and you just want to make sure it's a hand on your belly that's going up and down. So you're breathing from your belly. All right, and what you're going to do, you're going to inhale through your nose for 5 seconds, and then you're just going to hold it for a moment, and then you're going to exhale through your mouth for 10 seconds. So it's really just slowing your breathing rate down, and really when you do it the right way, you shouldn't be able to hear yourself breathing, and people around you shouldn't be able to hear yourself breathing, so you can do this and nobody would actually know. All right, so the first time I'm going to do it, I'll do it just a little bit loud so you can hear it, and then the second time I'll do it as though I was practicing it on my own, people around and would never notice. All right, so here I go. I'm going to inhale through my nose, and then through my mouth. There we go. And there was just a little bit of a hold in between. So I'm going to do it again, regular speed, and then I'll actually count for you and for you to give it a try. So here's what it would look like, and you'll probably won't even notice me doing anything. I'll do my fingers though, so you can see when I'm breathing in and when I'm breathing out. All right, here I go. And so that was just a very simple, took a deep breath through my nose, using my belly, and very slow release. It's slow enough that you should not be able to hear the air coming out of your mouth. Okay, and I've done this a lot with kids. We always do like heart rate contests, and we'll take the heart rate before they do it, and then we'll take a heart rate after. And I've had kids slow their heart rate down 20 to 25 beats a minute. And once your heart rate goes under 100, it's chemically impossible for your body to really be responding to a lot of the negative chemicals and emotions, and it just clears a whole lot of things up. So you give it a try. I'll count out loud for you, and you can see again it's super slow. So definitely don't breathe in real quick and don't breathe out real quick, because 5 and 10 seconds seems to take a while to happen. So ready? So start out through your nose. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold. Out your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great jobs. So usually you want to do about 3 to 5 sets of those at the beginning as you're trying to train yourself and get used to this. You know, I would shoot for once an hour, just to really get it under control and help. And this is also one of the skills that's going to help you a lot when if you think of your anxiety level 1 to 10, 10's the worst. You know, when you're at like a 5 or less, it's going to help keep it down. It's going to help you feel good. You know, if you're elevated, something bad just happened, or you're in the middle of a panic attack and you try the deep breathing, you know, sometimes your body will fight up against that, and it could potentially make you even feel worse. So throughout the program, we'll be talking about things to help you when you're at that elevated state. But right now, you know, do the breathing first thing in the morning when you're calm. You know, different times throughout the day, maybe that will remind you to do that. And like I said, I think you'll find a huge benefit from it. Okay, so talk to you soon. All right,
for those who can't
stop that one. Give me 1 second, I'll join you back here. So hopefully you saw in that what the deep breathing was all about. And the goal is for you to practice that before the next session, to the point where, like right now at the beginning, you'll be counting in your head 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. And I want you to get to the point where you can do that without the counting. You know about how long you have to breathe in, you know about how long you have to breathe out, and that you could just do it and not have to have the numbers go through your head. Because next time we're going to introduce something called right brain deep breathing, and we're going to need you to be able to do the breathing without counting, because we're going to make something like so much more effective and so much more powerful that's going to help you out a ton. But you have to get this piece. So I would say try and practice it at least 5 times a day. Again, it's only 15 seconds for one cycle. Do 3 to 5 cycles. So it literally takes you like no more than 1 minute to go through like the whole set of 3 to 5 cycles. And if you're doing it 5 times a day, it's taking you 5 minutes total. And it will be worth it in the end. All right, so we're going to go into the notebook now. So some of you have an electronic version, some of you have a printed version, and we're going to go right to page 5 to start session 1. So one of the things, you'll see some of the main points, and I'm sorry, it's actually page 4. So if you go to page 4, from those skills, you can type in some of the things that would be helpful for you to remember. So for the left brain deep breathing, you could just put 5 for inhale, 10 for exhale, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And again, put your hands behind your head or watch your belly to make sure that your breath is coming from the right location. So with that, we'll jump right in. So point number 1 on page 4 is you are not alone. So this is not something that you're dealing with that's unique. This is not something that nobody else has ever gone through and dealt with. And one of my major reasons for specializing and enjoying working with people with anxiety and depression is because I dealt with it pretty severely when I was younger. So I remember being a sophomore in college, and I had a biology final. And so it was a huge class, probably 150 to 160 students. And our final was in an auditorium. So, you know, we all went in and sat down and got our tests. And I had studied and I was ready, so I wasn't really nervous about it. And the instructor went up to the podium and, you know, gave the instructions and basically said, like, if you need to use the restroom, go use it now. You know, if there's any reason you need to leave now, because when I hand out the tests, you know, nobody's allowed to leave at that point until you're finished. And really didn't think much of that. And so the tests come out, and I'm starting to take my tests. And about halfway through the test, I just started feeling a little lightheaded and dizzy. And then it kind of seemed like the walls of this room were closing in on me, and just a lot of uncomfortable feelings. And then the what if thoughts start to creep in. So, you know, what if I leave? You know, is he going to fail me? He said we're not allowed to leave. Should I go ask permission? Like, I need to get outside, maybe walk around a little bit, try and feel a little better. Maybe I should just guess on the rest of this test and try and get through it and just get out of here. Didn't know like what to do, and I just kept feeling worse and worse till finally it was like, no matter what happens, like I need to get out of this room. So I got up, walked outside to get some fresh air, and just kind of pacing back and forth, and was still feeling dizzy, and the dizziness was making me feel a little nauseous, and it just got to the point where students are leaving, they're done with the tests, and I'm not feeling any better. So I just can't go back in there. So started heading towards my dorm room, and what would normally take 15 minutes probably took me 45, because every so many yards or feet, like I would sit down, and just because I wasn't feeling well, felt dizzy, just an exhausted type feeling. So finally made it back to my dorm room, and one of the things growing up, that it was my last final of the semester. It was spring, so summer was about to start. So went home, and my mom always worked for a doctor. So as soon as I got home, the very next day, went to the doctor, and he kind of checked me out and said, you have some type of virus, just go home and rest, and you should feel better. And I noticed, like, as I was dealing with this, like the sun was kind of like a trigger for me. So if I was in like bright lights and stuff, I felt more dizzy, it would give me a headache. So I went to my bedroom. I actually put a blanket like over top of my curtains, because it was like affecting me. And I remember sitting there for several days, listening to my friends out the window, playing basketball, having fun, wishing I could be out there doing something, but just didn't feel up to it. A couple days later, wasn't feeling better, so went back to the doctors. He did blood work, a couple tests, and those all came back normal. Then they did an MRI, in case, if I had MS, if I had a brain tumor, no idea what's going on and why I'm dizzy, not feeling well, and really getting panicky feelings at this point. That was normal. So then I was sent to a balance center in Pittsburgh to try and check my inner ear and those sort of things. And I remember like the doctors, telling me and my mom, like, we think we know what's wrong. Like, let's sit down and talk about it. And the doctor said, physically, all his tests are coming back normal. Like, we're pretty convinced, like, there's nothing physically wrong with you. We think you have some type of anxiety disorder. So part of me was relieved that, I'm not dying. But on the other side, I would have liked them to say, yeah, here's what you have. Go take these pills for 2 weeks and you'll feel better. So anyways, he hooked me up with some medication, and he hooked me up with some therapy. And I remember, so first when I got home, I took the medication, and it gave me tremors. So I was almost like shaky and stuff, and called the doctor and said, hey, we're getting these side effects. And the doctor's answer was, well, then double the dose. Now, at that age, like, that sounded crazy to me. Now that I'm in the world of psychology and have gone through a lot of medicine and clinical type classes, like, a lot of times a lower dose gives you all the side effects and no benefit. And now that I've seen clients and have heard people who've been told double the dose and they double it, it works like wonders. But for me, that was never explained. And in my mind, it was like, okay, if I double this dose, my symptoms are going to be twice as bad. There's no way I'm doing that. So all those pills went into the trash. And I was like, I'm never going to take these pills again, or any other for that matter. So the therapy that I went to, the guy was more of a dynamic therapist. So they're trying to connect what happened to you in the past and trauma to how it's affecting you currently. And, by all respects, I had a great mom, a great dad, got along normally with my brother and sister, had a lot of friends in the neighborhood and at school, and just didn't really have any trauma in my background. So my 2 times with him were like pulling teeth, trying to figure out what happened to me when I was 6 years old, because there was just really nothing I could identify. So I left that and was like, okay, this isn't helping. And I remember sitting in my bed, and again, I can hear my friends out the window doing things I wanted to do, but just didn't feel up to it, and just feeling really desperate. Like, what am I going to do?
And so part of me, like, I never got to where I ever wanted to hurt myself or anything like that, but enough to say, like, I don't want to live, the rest of my life sitting here in a bed with a blanket over the window. And so those of you who are a little bit older, 40 plus, probably remember back in the day you would watch TV, and every night at 2 in the morning they'd play the national anthem, and then TV would go completely blurry and wouldn't start back up till 6 in the morning. So there was no TV stations in the middle of the night. And every night at 1 o'clock, an infomercial would come on. So the Wonder Mop or the next great vitamin or car wax or whatever it may be. And I remember, like, sitting in bed and this infomercial for a recovery from anxiety. And, I was like, I don't care how much this thing costs. Like, I have to get this and allow it to help me. Back then it was on cassette tapes. And so that was like the very first thing that kind of pointed me in the right direction. And, at least gave me some relief from what I was feeling. And I just continued to say, like, I know I can get better. I know I can do better than this. I know I can get better than this, and just kept building up. And a lot of what we're going to talk about is really based on the last 20 years of my life, and things and skills that I've picked up, things that I've done, and in my graduate working with other people, and like all the best techniques that I've seen actually work for people, and things that have worked for me. I just want to share it with you and see you find the same success that I've had. As some of you have seen maybe in the promo stuff and different things. I've also worked as a professional magician. So I was on season 4 of Penn and Teller Full in Las Vegas. I've had shows with over 2,000 people there watching. And you know what, if you would have told me when I was 20 years old, sitting in my bed with a blanket over the window, that someday you're going to be on a stage with 3,000 people out there cheering for you and watching you, I'd have said you're absolutely crazy. Like I I can't even get out and go to my car and drive to the mall, let alone stand on a stage in front of 1,000 people. And I know a lot of you are relating to a lot of the things that I'm saying, and you've been there. You've had these symptoms, you've dealt with this, and I'm telling you, like, I can relate with you. I know how you're feeling. I know what you're going through, and so has so many other people. So right now, we're kind of, I don't know when you're watching this or what year it is, but right now it's the end of 2020. So coronavirus is kind of like a big thing right now and causing lots of havoc. So back in January, before coronavirus showed up on our planet, statistics showed 24.9% of Americans would say that anxiety deeply affects their life on a day-to-day basis. So it's preventing them from doing things. They're getting symptoms that are bothering them throughout the day. And since coronavirus hit, that number's jumped up just over 40%. So this is nothing unique. You walk down the street and see 3 people, at least one of those people are dealing with a lot of the same things that you're dealing with. And that was part of the need for this program. So in January, I would get like a weekly email, because my schedule, my main job is an administrator at a college, and I oversee and teach a lot of our psychology courses. So in the evenings, I do a few appointments working with people with anxiety. And back in January, I would get an email that said, hey, you had like 3 people that wanted services from you this week, but your schedule was full. After coronavirus hit, right now I'm getting an average of 35 to 40 requests every single week, people dealing with this and wanting help. And one week back in April, when it was kind of in the height and people didn't understand a whole lot about this, there was a thing, I had over 350 people requesting it, and that's just from the state of Pennsylvania. So you can see that there's a lot of people out there. You're not alone in this. And if you look in the book, just a couple definitions, if you want to type this in or write it in. So depression is a feeling of hopelessness and loss of interest in the world. So again, it's a feeling of hopelessness and loss of interest in the world. And anxiety The definition for that is the uneasiness of mind. So if you want to type that in, write it in your notebook, uneasiness of mind. Now here's the cool thing. So anxiety is a very close relative of excitement. So if you're in the middle of a panic attack, or if you're in the middle of like a really heightened anxious episode and you took a scan of your brain, it's going to look almost identical to if you took a scan of your brain when you're in the middle of a roller coaster ride. So the adrenaline is going to be released, your blood pressure is going to be up, your breathing rate's going to increase, your heart rate's going to increase, your oxygen level is going to have a slight decrease. So all these things that happen on a roller coaster happens to you when you're going through an anxiety moment or episode. And so the main difference is, when you're on a roller coaster, you want that to happen. You want that adrenaline, you want the heart rate up and the excitement and all those sort of things. When you're at work, sitting in the middle of a meeting and you start to feel dizzy and your adrenaline's flowing and your heart rate's going up, like that's uncomfortable, you don't like it, and we interpret it as something extremely negative versus interpreting it as something positive on the roller coaster. So a lot of the ways, your chemicals are the same as excitement, but it's the way that you're interpreting it. And I can tell you, through the way that we think about things, the way we interpret things is going to be a key in helping you find success in all this. But there's also an 85% link between anxiety and depression. So if you're an anxious person, eventually there's a great chance it's going to lead to some depression. If you have depression first, there's a good chance that that's eventually going to lead to some anxiety. So there's a big link between both, but the skills that you'll learn in this program will actually help you with both. So the next thing, it says there's dozens of symptoms that can be caused by anxiety and depression. So in your book, it says place an X next to the symptoms that you deal with. If you're doing it online, there's a place you can click and put some boxes up there. So just read through that list and go ahead and mark the ones that you feel like you've dealt with. All right, hopefully everybody's had a chance to go through that list and mark. So the average, again, I've done lots of groups of 8 people with this that we go every week through a series, and a lot of people I've dealt with individually that we've gone through this. So I've been tracking numbers and marking down how many people say that they deal with. So in this list, the average person makes 11 checks. So they say 11 of these symptoms is the average number. Now I've had people mark all of them, so that they've marked all 20. One person I think had 32 one time because they added 12 to that list that wasn't on there. Sometimes people have a lower number, but when you take all those into consideration, the average number is 11. And again, 400 million people in the United States, at least 25% dealing with it. There's 100 million people out there that will be checking the exact same boxes that you just checked. So number 2 is there's certain personality traits common to people with anxiety and depression. So you're going to mark right in the word personality. And then you can see it says place an X next to the symptoms that you deal with. So look through that and say, man, that meets my personality exactly. I love to catastrophize about things. I have super high expectations that I know play a part in my anxiety. The what if thinker is super common, and almost everybody marks that they allow their brain to take them in negative places. But hopefully you were able to go through that list. And again, looking at those check marks that you have of all the groups, the people I've worked with that I've tracked, the average number of check marks in that area is 10. So you can see maybe you're exactly average, maybe you're a little bit higher, maybe you're a little bit lower. But again, taking all those people that have sought out help and looked for help, the average number there is 10. All right, so if you go over to page 5, the main point, number 3 for this, is the root of anxiety and depression is control. So that, agoraphobia is kind of when your anxiety prevents you from doing things that you would like to do. So it leads to avoidance of things and places that you don't have total control. So if you look at the list below, I want you to put an X on any of those where you feel like, man, I would never do that. I would never fly. I don't drive because of my anxiety. I avoid crowded places. These are things where if you think about these things or you do these things, like it's really gonna be a trigger and give you high anxiety. So go ahead through that list and put some check marks down there. And then again, through all my tracking and everything in this area, average number is 5 that people check and say, these are the 5 things that I absolutely cannot do. So maybe you're a little higher, maybe you're a little lower, but no matter how many check marks you checked, there's millions of other people out there that are checking the exact same boxes, know how you feel, can relate to how you feel. And number 4, anxiety and depression are fueled by unhealthy thinking. So some common thoughts, like if I do this, I'll be embarrassed. I'm never going to get better. I'm not worth it. I can't change. And your brain will convince you of all these things, but we're going to change that. It's not that big of a deal. And that's one area we just talk about, and it'll be a huge part of the program in the future. So I've never actually tracked because there's so many negative thoughts out there that if you clicked on the others, you could probably add another 1,000, 2,000 negative thoughts that you have to the list. And we would just be here all day thinking about negative thoughts, but we're going to talk about it in the future. So number 5, many people have learned to manage their anxiety and depression. So manage goes in the blank. There's always that age-old question, is this nature? Is it nurture? So, is this something I inherited from genetically from my family? Is this something that I learned? So if you had a very depressed parent, is that genetically passed on to you? Or is that something you've just watched them and their negative thoughts and their negative worldview growing up, and you've just picked it up? And you know what, there's great evidence for both sides. But what is probably a combination of both, and whether it's more nature, whether it's more nurture, the way that you're going to recover from this is going to be the same. So we don't necessarily have to solve that issue. But if it's genetic, family, if you have a family with mental illness or anxiety and depression issues, you're 7 times more likely than the average person that you're going to suffer as well. Again, whether that's learned behavior or whether that's something that was passed on genetically doesn't really matter. But you can see some environmental factors that seem to play a part in this. So if you look at those things and put a check mark next to the ones that apply to you. People at times ask sibling parents. So that would be like if your parents were kind of unavailable. So either you had to step into the mom or dad role for your siblings, or one of your siblings kind of raised you. And the other ones I think you'll be able to understand. So if you count up your check marks through all the groups, people I've worked with, the average number in this area is 8. So on average, people mark 8 of those boxes. Also, if you have a high number, there's a study that's come out. It's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences, and it's called ACE for short. So if that's an assessment you're interested in, there's only 11 questions. It asks about major death growing up, whether you were abused, divorced, those sort of things, and you just put a check. And there's great research on, once you get to a certain point, I think, if you've dealt with 4 or more of those 11, how much your chances of mental illness and other things, drastically increase. And so if that's something you're interested in looking at and the studies behind it, but even if you go in there and you mark 10 out of the 11 and you see hey, I'm going to deal with mental illness and I'm going to deal with anxiety and depression, I'm going to help you anyway. So that there's not a ton of benefit to going in and doing it and say, hey, I have a much better chance of mental illness, because what you're doing now, you're on the right track, and we're going to get you to the right place. So just wrapping up session number 1. First of all, what we're going to use is what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. So it goes by CBT for short. And so its whole foundation is that a lot of it backtracks to your thoughts and negative thinking and thinking patterns And so the theory is you have a thought. That thought leads to a certain type of feeling, and that feeling leads to a certain behavior. That behavior will create a new thought, and you get in this cycle. So let's imagine you're walking down the street. You see people cross the street. They're kind of looking your way a lot, kind of chuckling a little bit, and you're convinced those people are talking about me and they're laughing about me. So that produces a feeling. So maybe you feel embarrassed. Maybe you feel angry. Maybe you feel upset. So you're walking down the street, you just go in the nearest donut shop. That's the action, and you eat 3 donuts to make yourself feel better. And that works for about 5 minutes, and then you walk out of the donut shop, and now you start thinking like, man, I'm such a pig. What in the world did I just go and eat 3 donuts for? Well, and so that thought that now that you're a pig and you're a loser or whatever those thoughts are, now you feel bad. Now you feel depressed. Now you feel sad, and it's going to cause you to do a new thing. So people, as they get into this anxiety and depression, they get in this cycle of negative thoughts causing negative feelings, those negative feelings causing negative behaviors, and the negative behavior creating a new negative thought. And it's just an endless cycle. And one of the things we're going to do with the CBD or the CBT is to help with those skills, help you manage these feelings, help you manage the symptoms that you're having, and really pull you out of this in a way that you never thought was even possible. So just a couple things. Number one, these last blanks, it will take work. So some of you may have been doing this for the past 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, and it's become a lot of bad habits. And breaking habits is not always the easiest thing to do, but you can do them. But you have to put some work into it and say, like, I'm going to focus on these things. Expectations is going to be a key in this. Whatever you set for your goal is probably what you're going to get to. My favorite was a guy in group one time came in and said, I've quit my job. I couldn't manage it with these symptoms. I've lost a relationship, and like, I'm so desperate. I don't care if you tell me to go bark out in the street and bark like a dog. I'm going to do that because I'm desperate. Like, I need something major to happen. And his life completely changed around. By week 6, he was looking for jobs, had found a job. Before the end, had actually gotten back into the relationship that he had lost, and just completely changed his life around in a very short time. But he got to the point where I'm going to do whatever it takes, and I'm putting all my time, energy, and attention into this, and I'm going to get back to where I'm feeling great. And hopefully you'll set that goal as well. So number 2, it may get worse, and that's the hardest part in all this. So some of these, again, behaviors and habits that you've picked up and have been doing for years and years and years, when you try and break that habit, change things around, like at times it feels worse. And so if you imagine going to the gym, if you haven't exercised in the last 30 years, the first couple times you may feel pretty good, and hey, I'm getting out there, I'm doing things, this isn't so bad. And then normally by week 2, week 3, you hit that wall, and you say, whoa, I felt better when I just sat at home on the couch watching TV. Like, forget this. And it's one of those things, if you can get over that wall and you stick with it and come out the other side, it's so much better. And normally what happens week by week, the first 4, 5 weeks, people come in every week, hey, I'm feeling a little better, these skills are helping, I'm doing good. And it's usually around week 6, week 7, people hit that wall. And I'm always begging people, and I'm sure in these videos, as I get to those sessions, I'll be saying, please come back, don't give up. You're just at that wall, let's get you over that wall. And the other side is just so much better. And the last thing, expect major change in 3 months. So again, if you're doing these videos once a week, if you choose to do them every other week, just keep practicing the skills in between. Just divide that out to 15 sessions. And like I said, you're going to see some major change. So we're going to retrain your brain, give you some new thinking, new experiences. The homework I want you to do between now and next time, number 1, set a goal for your recovery. So set it high. You definitely want to feel good as you're walking around, going through life, able to function, able to drive, able to do your job, able to engage with your family and your children. and set some really high goals. And one of the goals may be, I don't know where it's at in the year as you're watching this, but what do I want my life to look like 6 months from now? So at Christmas time, by the time the 4th of July rolls around, well, like here's the things that I expect to be different. And you know what? When you expect those things and you follow these skills, it's going to happen and it will be different. Number 2, practice that deep breathing. Again, try and do it at least 5 times every day, 3 to 5 cycles. So, breathe in for 5, breathe out for 10. That's one cycle. You do it 3 to 5 times. It takes you a minute to a minute and a half, and try and do that 5 times a day. And like I said, what we introduce next week is usually one of the favorite skills people pick up. And then the last thing, I want you to tell 3 people that you're getting help with your anxiety and depression. So you can pick 2 easy people. So maybe tell a spouse, tell a sister, tell your best friend. I also want you to pick one person that's a little bit of a challenge that you say, I don't know how this person's going to respond. And next time we'll talk about why and those sort of things. But really just find 3 people and, say, would you please just pray for me? Like, I've been struggling with this. I'm getting some help. Think about me, whatever it may be, support me. And I just want you to kind of leave that on the table and see what kind of response that you get. Okay, so great talking with you all. And like I said, I'm super excited to do the other 14 sessions and again, share the skills and things that I've learned along the way that I know is just going to change your life. So we'll see you soon.